experience, a lot of people don't particularly understand about human rights and how they relate to maternity care. Now, this is both people accessing maternity care and also those working within it. It seems to be something that is, highly misunderstood, and it's not really clear to some people that those accessing our care have the right to say no, and that there's certain laws that protect them. Now, what's come up whilst I've been creating this course, I found a report that was done by Human Rights in Childbirth that was submitted to the United Nations around violence to women, particularly in childbirth. And one of the things that they mention in it is actually something that was brought up by Angel. I don't know if it was at Dynamo Doula training or since then. And it really confronted me, I guess. And it's cool. In the report, they refer to it as maternal grooming, which now I understand that term. I can actually look back and I can see where it's happened to clients. I've seen it happen in front of me. And it's basically where, say for example, a woman has said, I don't want to have an induction at 40 weeks. This is just an example. And so she has that discussion with her midwife, and she says she understands the risks and the benefits, and she doesn't wish to have an induction at 40 weeks. So then the midwife says, okay, that's fine. You need to see our consultant midwife in our birth choices clinic or whoever, or an obstetrician, to discuss it. So they go along to that, and then what happens there is that the risks of not having an induction are reeled off, and often what's left out is the benefits of waiting or the risks of having an induction. It's all seems to be very heavily weighted, which is not just my experience, but this is what's reported, very heavily weighted towards the risks of the woman or birthing person not accepting the intervention that's being recommended as per the guidelines. So it's tailoring care that meets the needs of the system and does not support the human rights in terms of the woman as an individual. Now, we know through there's a big landmark case that changed law in the UK in terms of consent, the Montgomery Lanarkshire case in 2015, where a doctor withheld information because he felt, or she felt, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, he or she felt that the woman, if she knew these risks, she would have opted for a cesarean section. And so the information was withheld, and unfortunately the baby ended up having cerebral palsy because he had shoulder dystocia, which was the risk that the doctor didn't share for a vaginal birth. The reason he didn't share it was because, or she, was because they decided that they felt that it was in the best interest of the woman to not have a cesarean, so withheld that information. And this family was awarded millions, and the doctor was found liable. So when we think about human rights, where there is coercion, which that's what this is. So if someone, that's what I'm referring to in terms of maternal grooming. Coercion is another word for the same thing, I guess, where someone says no, and then so repeatedly at every appointment that follows, the risks are listed off, and it's heavily weighted towards trying to persuade the woman to accept the intervention rather than it coming from a place of unbiased, being unbiased. And that is a huge problem. In terms of the legalities of human rights, I feel like it is puts the professional in a situation where they could be seen as coercing a woman or maternal grooming if they know the person that they're seeing. Which brings me on to the next thing, which is why I felt so confronted when this was initially brought up with me. Because Angel said that continuity of carer adds to the problem around maternal grooming. It's a form of grooming. And initially I was just really confronted. I didn't say anything about it. But then as time's gone on and I've really thought about it, it's made me realise what a heavy responsibility we have as caseload midwives or as independent midwives in terms of what we say to women, and how women or birthing people that we have got to know that really trust us will listen to what we say and trust that we have their best interests at heart. So it's really important that we try to avoid giving our personal opinion and only give facts. I have had clients before where I've refused to give personal opinion and they get frustrated sometimes because they just want me to tell them what to do. And I'm very clear from the outset with my clients that I will not tell them what to do. I will never tell a client what to do. I will only ever share information with them, and then it's their responsibility to make the choices that are right for them and their family based on the information that we've got. And I have seen this happen. I've seen in front of me with a client who was refusing a certain intervention, and they had a midwife that they knew that they had seen continuously with their NHS appointments, and because there was a trust there, they listened to what they were saying to them, and they were convincing them to go down a certain route, which then they would say to me that they didn't want to do, but then they didn't want to upset the NHS midwife. And it was a really difficult situation for the woman to be in, and as an independent midwife as well, for me to be in, because I could see what was happening. But there's only so much that you can talk about, and you can let someone know that they have a right to choice, but it just shows how careful we need to be with what we say, and how even the kindest, nicest midwives, unfortunately, can still coerce women or groom them when you get to know them into doing what the guidelines say, because they feel the fear that comes from women perhaps opting to go against the guidelines because it's not right for them. And I will add here that the thing that really frustrates me is when people talk about guidelines like they are a set of rules, and by their very definition, by their very name, they are there to guide. They're not there to enforce on women. Nothing, you cannot enforce anything upon a woman or a birthing person. With the presence of coercion, any consent that is given by a woman or birthing person is not valid. And if information is withheld, then any consent that is obtained is not valid. And in the absence of choice, you cannot obtain consent from somebody and it be real, valid, understood, informed consent unless they've had a real choice. So the ability to say yes or no. So in the absence of choice, again, consent is not valid. So when women and birthing people are put in situations where they feel like they're having to accept certain treatment, not because they want to or because they feel it's right for them, but because they are consistently being told that they're putting their baby at risk, or they're feeling pressurised, the consent that's obtained isn't valid. And later on, if something was to happen, or that woman was to feel traumatised, or there was anything that happened within the birth, then that could come back round to the professional who didn't obtain consent and didn't make sure that the woman had a real valid choice. So yeah, I feel like I'm waffling on now, but I just wanted to do a post on this. It's been on my mind for quite a while, and just because I'm doing this online course for student midwives, which is heavily weighted in terms of human rights. It's like the golden thread that runs through the whole course. It just made me think about it, and I just wanted to share. And I know that a lot of the people that follow me are passionate about continuity of carer, or are case lead midwives or independent midwives, and this isn't about like slating anybody. What it is about is calling out this sort of behaviour. So I ask, if you're feeling confronted by it, if you feel angry by what I've said, I ask you to look inwards and ask yourself why, because I felt that discomfort, and it was because what I was hearing was true. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've got any questions or you want to chat, please do feel free to get in touch via like pop a comment in or send me a DM.